way up to $35,000 for average weddings.
$30,000?
My biggest flex is that our wedding was under 10K, but it looked Welcome back to the channel. So much has happened since we last talked, but let's just start with the biggest one. I got married, I had a destination wedding in Mexico, and I just wanted to jump back on with some information before we got into all the fun stuff with the wedding. So here are 4 things that you definitely want to consider when planning your destination wedding, and 4 things to avoid at all costs. Let's jump right in. Communication, 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 communication. It's important in relationships, it's important in your destination wedding. A few ways that we communicated with our guests was through our invitations. Obviously, you're gonna send an invitation, and we put as much information on that invitation as we could while keeping it elegant, classy, and not overloading. And then we partnered with the Knot to have our wedding information digital. So if you lose your invitation, or you just want something to look back at with more information, we use the Knot for that. It had all of our wedding details, the attire that you're gonna wear, what the destination looked like, what we would be doing at destination, and then finally, which was probably gonna be the most common way that you're gonna communicate with your guests, especially for a destination wedding, you're going to want to check in monthly. People are going to forget to RSVP. They're going to forget to look at their invitations. They're not going to look at the wedding website. You'll have a few people that are used to traveling that might refer back to that, and that's great. But for the overwhelming majority, they're going to ask you the exact same questions that's on that website and that they got in the invitation. So just be ready to over communicate with them as much as possible. For our wedding specifically, a lot of our guests were coming from very far distances. My husband is Liberian, so his mom came from Liberia. My older sister's from New York. She and her husband were coming all the way from New York. We had guests in Maryland, some from Minnesota. Our destination wedding was really, I can't believe we pulled it off, honestly, getting all those people from all of those different locations. We noticed that for a lot of our guests, it was actually their first vacation, so we couldn't be too hard on them about, staying on top of things, just because they didn't know. So one specific example is our destination wedding planner coordinator website, whatever you want to call it. They offered a travel service or a shuttle from the airport to the actual resort. Many of them booked that, they paid for it, but they had no idea what to do when they actually got there, and unfortunately they ended up missing their shuttles, or they weren't able to get the transportation that they paid for originally. So that was one way that we could have communicated a little bit better, even though it was on the website. We tried to put that on our wedding website, it was on the destination website, but just call, check in, do whatever we could, because people, they don't read. I don't read all the time. So you're gonna wanna over communicate with your guests as much as possible and just feel comfortable doing it. Don't feel like you're babysitting them. Even if it feels that way, they're showing up for you. So you gotta give them the information. So I would just say always be prepared to over communicate as much as possible, even if it feels like you're annoying people. I mean, several times I was like, oh, I don't really wanna do this again, but they needed the information, so I'm glad that we did. Always over communicate. Giving yourself a year in advance to plan is the bare minimum. I am totally type B. I've never been a planner. I don't put things in my phone. I'm very forgetful. So you definitely want to give yourself at least 1 year of planning time, just in case anything changes or anything goes wrong. Our initial plan was to have our destination wedding in Brazil. So we took a trip last year around the end of February, beginning of March, to try to just scope out our venue, because we actually already had our venue locked in, we were ready to go. And once we got there, we realized that with guests coming from Liberia and New York and all over, it would just be a lot more feasible for our guests to have something that wasn't so far away. It was absolutely beautiful in Brazil, but it was very difficult to communicate with the people there. A lot of them didn't speak English. A lot of our communication was through hand movement and gestures. It was basically a big charades game in Brazil, which was really fun for Twaka and I, just as a couple traveling there, but for guests, at a wedding event, it would have just been a disaster. So giving ourselves a year in advance to plan was crucial. I'm so glad that we had at least a year to get that changed. Because we were having a smaller and intimate wedding, our guests were a little bit more flexible with us, and that's something that you can also expect if you're having a destination wedding versus having a huge wedding in your local city or wherever you live and everyone that you know is there. They're not going to be as forgiving as close friends and family, so they were flexible with us when we changed our destination from Brazil to Mexico. A lot of them were actually happy. It made it a little bit more of an easy trip for them, but you're definitely going to want to give yourself bare minimum. I'm stressing bare minimum because 1 year was really tight for us, but 1 year gives you a little bit of a wiggle room if you're going to plan with a destination package like we did. I couldn't make this video without mentioning budgeting. Everybody knows that they should budget, but do they know that they should budget and stick to the budget? That's the hard part. So for us, our wedding package came with a lot of things, and if you're indecisive like me, having a budget and actually planning to stick to it really helps you to narrow down your options. So I was able to flip through the catalog and only look at what our budget allowed. So that really helped. On the other hand, I didn't love the options that we were given. Even the more expensive flower options for us were just not anything that we wanted to spend money on. So we were able to partner with Alibaba for more custom flowers, things that we really liked that fit our vibe, and they did not break the bank. I will just give a disclaimer, if you are planning ahead, you're gonna wanna do all of that Alibaba stuff and looking for your flowers in advance, because there are shipping charges if you wanna have things rushed to you or shipped by air. So if you ship things by sea, it's a little bit cheaper, but I didn't get my flowers until like the end of November, early December, and our wedding was in January. So I had to rush a lot of that, but it was still cheaper and I liked it a lot more than the catalog options from our website. So I don't know, just keep that in mind. Another thing that I really had to struggle with budgeting on was like little details like the chairs. So I have my Pinterest board, and I'll drop the link below of all the stuff that I had saved from my wedding, but I saw these beautiful table designs and like the really cute chairs, and I wanted the chairs, but our package already included chairs that were just white. And to me, I'm like, ugh, I don't want white chairs on a white cloth, but it actually ended up really beautiful, and it was affordable because it came with our package versus the chairs that were, I think they were going for about $10 for the ones that I really wanted. I wanted them, but they were like $10, and if you times that by the amount of guests and the extra people, it really adds up in comparison to the free chairs that came with our package that ended up looking pretty nice. They were really beautiful. I was afraid that white on white would not look good, but out in the sunny beachy venue, white on white was definitely the way to go. So have that budget, stick to it, and just spend money. If you want to splurge, do it on the things that matter, not chairs, because I guarantee you no one's gonna remember what my chairs look like. So when Twaka and I were brainstorming, how can we make our guests feel appreciated in a very authentic and non-cheesy way, one of the ideas that we thought were really cool was with name tags and assigned seating. This is where customization really came in clutch for us. So we sat our guests with their partners or their plus ones, and then we also strategically partnered them with people that we knew that they would vibe with even if they had never met. So crazy story, literally last night one of our wedding guests sent us a picture of them with some people they were sitting at the table with. It was Twaka's best man and one of his really good friends. We put them at a table they had never met, and that night they planned to meet up later after the wedding, and they actually did. I mean, you know how people just talk, but they actually met up and they sent us this picture last night, and I was like, oh my god, that is so cool. So another idea that we had to make sure that our guests felt really special and appreciated were our custom gift boxes. I absolutely love the boxes. We did white boxes for the girls, black matte boxes for the guys. They weren't the easiest to travel with, but it was so worth it once we actually got there and put them all together. It was super cute. We put custom tote bags in there and had like our little wedding date on there, the location, and an A and a T for Anna and Twaka. Super cute. I love that, so they could carry that with them to the beach if they needed to. We also had an eye mask, so the resort required that every guest stay at least 3 nights, so I thought it would be very beneficial to go ahead and put an eye mask in there. Very comfortable, they could dispose of it or take it back with them. That was cute. We also threw some chocolate in there. It had a little wedding design with our date and our A and our T. It was just so cute and fancy, I loved it. And then we custom wrote, I guess not custom, but we personally wrote thank you letters to each one of our guests Some I wrote, some Tuaka wrote, just to give a very personal feel. We appreciate them spending the money to get there, taking the time off work, doing all the things that it takes to travel, not to mention the hassle that it was to get there in January. So we were really appreciative. Really encourage you guys to do that too, especially for a destination wedding, because it really becomes about the guest at that point too. One of the plus ones I had never met, and she just kept going on and on about how much she felt welcomed, and she was like, "You guys really planned for me to be here?" And I was like, "Yes, that is the point." So I loved making our guests feel special. I really encourage you to do the same. If you're having a destination wedding, make it a little bit about the guests, because they are there for you. So when we originally told our guests that we were going to be having our wedding in Brazil, or a destination wedding period, we got immediate pushback. And ultimately, it was because it was going to make a lot of people who really wanted to be there not be able to be there, and we understand that, but we had to do what was best for us. Let me check. So the average wedding cost in America is between $29,000 and $35,000.
$30,000.
My biggest flex is that our wedding was under $10K, but it looked like a $35,000 wedding. The wedding guest list was another area where I really had to stay strong and not let other people make decisions for me. My vision was always to have an intimate wedding with people that I do day-to-day life with, or people that support from a faraway distance, but you just know they're always going to be in your life. And when I look back at the pictures and see myself laughing and smiling and being able to let loose and dance, and just the speeches and everything was so personal, I am so happy we did that. And so if there's somebody that you don't want at your wedding, or you do want at your wedding, go for it. Don't let anyone make those decisions for you. So I had to learn this the hard way, but you definitely don't want to just pick the first wedding planning company that you see. And because we were just coming from having to switch our location from Brazil to Mexico so quickly, I was just like, I need something fast so that I can give our guests enough time to plan, and so that we can have enough time to plan as well. But the more I started digging and working with the company, I realized like I should have done a little bit more research and gotten a lot of the stuff cheaper, just like we did with our wedding arch and our flowers and all the things that we did research on. So even this morning when I checked the website, I realized that the actual resort that we stayed at for all those nights, and we paid all that money, it was cheaper to just book it through the resort than to go with the third-party website that we chose. So shuttling, we paid about $50 per person for an airport shuttle to the resort and back, when they had a free shuttle the whole time at the resort. And I'm just like, we had all of our guests pay for that. Some of them even ended up missing their shuttles when it was free through the resort. They had a wedding planning site through the resort, and we did all of that through a third-party vendor, which made communication way harder than it had to be. So I'm just gonna say, definitely research, compare options. If you do end up going with a really good wedding planning site, just compare their prices to maybe the venue they're sending you. So for an example, if your wedding planners want you to try a venue, look up that venue on its own and just see what their pricing is, because 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to come with its own set of perks, and the communication with that direct location will be a lot better than dealing with a middleman or a third-party vendor. So one big thing that I had to keep in mind is that everything at your wedding is going to come with a cost. 9 times out of 10, whenever you're doing anything wedding related in any way, the price is just going to skyrocket. So everything you're doing, it's going to come with a cost. So don't settle for anything. One of the big ones that we talked about earlier was the flowers. Another was our arch. A lot of the arches that came in the catalog with our plan or our package were just not our style, and they weren't cheap. The cheapest arch that we were shown through our wedding planners was roughly, I think it was like $475 or $500. I think it was $500 for a big wooden, just square arch. It had like some white fabric wrapped around it. It was just not gonna cut it for our wedding. Not the vibe, not anything that we liked, and that was the cheapest one offered. So I was like, I'm not gonna pay for this, and I don't love it. So don't settle. Always, always, always look around, research. We ended up going with Alibaba for our arch as well. We got there, we put it together, and it was so beautiful, so elegant, so minimal, which is definitely our style for a beach resort wedding. We didn't want a bunch of flowers and over-the-top stuff anyway, because the venue on its own was beautiful. It looked like $1 million. So don't settle, whether that's with flowers, whether that's with guests, whether that's anything that you don't want at your wedding, don't have it there. And if there's something that you want, find a way to get it there because it is your big day. It was my big day and I did not want to settle with an ugly wooden arch. Our package with the resort, or with Destify rather, came with a wedding planner, which was very helpful, but communicating with her was very stressful. I'm just gonna be honest. I could mainly only communicate with her through a long string of just emails here, emails there, things that just didn't add up. I had to work around her schedule for planning phone calls, and ideally I'd want to be able to just shoot a text over with some pictures of ideas that I want, or just give her a quick call whenever I had something. And I'm not a wedding planner, so that may be not feasible for anyone, but overall, it was just very stressful. A lot of our planning process started around Thanksgiving or Christmas, just with the wedding website alone. So she was out of office for most of the time that I needed her, and so it just made it very stressful. And the more we got close to the wedding, the more things honestly just started to fall apart. I mean, our flights got canceled. That was a disaster. The day before we were supposed to leave, we found out our flights got canceled. The day that we actually traveled to Mexico, our flights were delayed by hours. It was absolutely terrible. And just more and more stuff started happening. And I was just like, at this point, I can't stress about this anymore. Luckily, because we had our friends and family, they were very accommodating, they were flexible, they were helpful. The intimate wedding really made a lot of the stress go away, and a lot of our guests really just assured me that it's typical for things to go wrong. So I'm here to tell you, try not to stress about the little things, even the big things, because if you go through with your wedding, it's all gonna come through. At the end, it's gonna work out, it's gonna be beautiful. If you have to make some little small pivots and changes throughout the way, it's normal. It's normal for things to go absolutely terrible, but they're gonna come together at the end. The goal is to marry the person that you love. And if you're having a destination wedding, it's small, it's intimate, no one's gonna care. I mean, our bags ended up getting lost in the airport. So I prepared myself to have to walk down the aisle in like regular clothes. I was mentally prepared, like, I might not have my dress, but at the end of the day, I'm still gonna marry Chwaka. All of our close friends and our family are gonna be here. We're on this beautiful beach, this beautiful venue. All that matters is that we say our vows that we wrote to each other and that we have a good time here. And that's all you can really do. So don't stress, keep the main things, and have a good time. Have a good time at your wedding. Enjoy each other's company and just fantasize about the rest of your life together. All right, people, that was my TED Talk. I hope that was really helpful. If that was valuable to you, go ahead and comment if I left out anything, or if you have questions about the resort, my dress, anything like that that I did not mention, comment those questions down below. Go ahead and subscribe because I still have so much wedding content and other life stuff in general to talk to you guys about and help you through. So if you enjoyed this video, comment, share, subscribe, do all the things. I love you guys so much. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys back next time.